So my efforts have paid off, and I've got a meeting with either a translator or a driver. And again, when you think about kind of how you're going to approach these 4 accounts that you're going to transform, the first thing you're going to do is start in the middle. Go for the translators first. Right? Don't start at the bottom. Don't start with the implementers and think you're going to work your way up, because there's actually a bigger disconnect between the translator level and the implementer than there is between the translator and the driver. Even if the translator and the driver are different companies. The front end of the agency looks really different than the back end of the agency. Right? The part that the part that thinks and differentiates, it's like that's a real different place to operate. So I want those translators. And ultimately, remember, my goal is this. Right? I don't just want to get in. I don't just want to get in and do a pitch or do a meeting. I want to get in, and I want to get into that kind of a meeting. Collaborative, engaged, focused, solution-driven. Right? I want the guard to come down. I want this to be a meeting of peers. So the process goes like this. First, I start with, again, I'm gonna stress this one more time. Right? Think about what you're going into. They met you at the door and said, Keith,
I get that every day.
You got 15 minutes.
Oh.
Right? You got 15 minutes. Or they do a couple of other things. They do the 5-minute out call. You know about the 5-minute out call?
Sure.
What's the 5-minute out call?
Pull me out in 5 minutes. They call the secretary to yank him.
Yeah. They always get a phone call 5 minutes into every meeting. They've arranged with their secretary or somebody else in the department to call and give them an out. Right? If this meeting is still on fire and I got to get out of it, I can pick up the phone and go, oh really? He said that? Oh shit. Okay, yeah, all right. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Listen, I'm really sorry, Keith, but the CEO's hair is on fire and I gotta go down the hall, and right, that happens all the time. Here's another one. They bring Jimmy along to the meeting. Jimmy's the intern with the clipboard. And hey, listen, I can't stay for the whole meeting, but Jimmy's going to be here, and he's going to make sure that he takes notes, right? You don't want to get Jimmy'd, right? So all this stuff is going on. All this stuff is happening, right? That's like conspiring against you, because the tape is playing in their head. So I want to, so the first thing that I want to be, if I can only be one thing in the eyes of this client, in the first 30 seconds of the meeting, the first thing that I want to be is different. Make sense? Because if I play into any of the stereotypes, they're going to go, okay, I've seen this movie, I know how it ends. It ends badly. So when I come into the situation to the client, the client's thinking, what exactly is this meeting about? This meeting's okay. What's this meeting about? Well, the meeting, I wanted to make sure the meeting was focused on stuff that was really important to you. I did a short analysis of your business, and I'd love for you to take a look. Ethos, I did my homework. Meeting's about you, right? Pathos. I'd like you to look at it. Read it. Love to get your thoughts on it. Let's use this as a jumping off point for our conversation. Okay, think of it. Walk me through this now. What's the psychology that's going on here? Why read it? Why hand it over? Why put them in the driver's seat? Any ideas?
He's validating the exchange. You're getting them to buy in. Kind of co-own the exchange.
Okay, so that's, I'm saying, like, hey, this is our meeting, right? So, we're in this together, right? So, I want you to do something, right? What else?
Forcing their engagement.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I want engagement, so I'm going to ask for it. Steve, I'd love you to take a look at this. Let him read it. A couple of other things as well. What's, psychologically, what's going on here? Why else? What does this do for me?
Puts him in the customer and client in the position of the approver, the keeper of the knowledge.
It gets you information.
He can validate what you brought.
All the above, right? The other thing it's doing is I'm saying, you know what? I could cut that penny in half with the scissors, but I'm not going to. I want you to cut something. Because this product we're going to talk about, these ideas, these are your ideas. So I want to actually put them in your hand as fast as I can. I want you to start to participate as quickly as possible. First 90 seconds of the meeting. That's how critical it is. First 90 seconds of the meeting, I want that client engaged. So it takes him 2 minutes to read this. Okay? So I open with the narrative brief. What does that opening sound like? I prepared a short analysis of your business. I did a done some research. I'd love you to take a look at some of our thoughts. It's just a page. Put it in front of them. Okay? Since it's a page, they're not going to get lost in it. They're not going to be put off by it. Are they going to be interested in seeing it? They should be. Absolutely. Right? Now, if you happen to get a decision maker who goes, you know what, that's all well and good, but we really need to talk about your click rate. Well, guess what? Doesn't matter what their title is. You're talking to an implementer. You're talking to a hardcore DR planner who's like not gonna, no matter what their title is, right? So you've disqualified. Now, I open with a narrative brief. Importantly, I close on it. And by closing, first of all, I'm presenting this narrative brief not as, hey, I have perfect knowledge of your business, but rather, I have an educated assumption about your business. Okay? Now, I'm going to specifically ask him to make it better. I'm going to acknowledge that it's not perfect. So, Michelle, what did we miss? What's not here that should be? What else should we be focused on here? What do you think? What do you think of the issues we selected? I don't want this person to tell me that I'm right. Because agreement is not what I want. I want engagement. So I'm going to ask questions. By the way, here's something to write down in your notes on this page. What and how questions. If you ask questions that begin with what and how, they'll stimulate conversation. Because you can't answer them in a closed way. Right? So what did we miss? How do you feel about the approach? I mean, what's not here that ought to be, right? Actually invite them to critique it, invite them to add to it. Okay? So I get that going. Now this is going to produce this is going to yield a tremendous amount of real insight and real engagement, right? You'll know the client's engaged because they're speaking in full sentences. They're not necessarily making eye contact with you, but they're looking at the document. So they've got a copy of the narrative brief in front of them. You've got a copy of the narrative brief in front of you. You can make notes while they're talking. And so literally, these are the first pieces of paper on the table. Okay? You'll reach a point. It may just be really, we know this whole process we're talking about here is maybe 5 to 8 minutes. 5 to 8 really productive minutes at the beginning of the call. Now, you get to a certain point where when you've got some more issues on the table, or when they've gone through and really kind of walked through the issues with you here, ask the prioritization question. Write this down. This is your pivot point in the call, right? Ask the prioritization question. So Keith, we've talked about several issues here. Out of all the things that we've identified, what's most timely? What's the most critical? Where would you like to start the process? Well, issue number 4, that's the most important one. Well, great. We thought about that in advance. We've given that some thought. We have some recommendations. This is where you're selling on the first call. You're actually taking them through some of your recommendations. So I'm going to, basically think, I've prepared my solution map. So, the pages on these different things are in my bag. I can bring one out. I can kind of talk about that product, that solution, right? Got all the stuff up here. And the close on that particular product is always collaborative. So, Dante, so how would you see this working? What creative message would you want to have in here? Right? How do you feel? How do you feel it can make this even stronger for Tylenol? Right? What and how? Right? I'm going to continue to put the knife in their hand. I'm going to continue to give them the opportunity to, to participate. Now, once we've had a chance to deal with that, we go back into the cycle. Right? What's the second priority? Now, look at the number of times that I'm surrendering control. Okay? But am I really surrendering control? I'm actually getting more control. Because who do we say was always in control of the meeting? Person doing the least amount of talking. Look where we've gone. Okay? The further up the food chain you go, the less tolerance there's going to be for a GP or a capabilities presentation. They just don't want it. Okay? You're leading with needs, right? You're leading with needs, and you're differentiating yourself in the eyes of the client right out of the gate. The very first thing, you're answering that question, what's this meeting about? This meeting's about you. This meeting's about the stuff that kept you awake last night. Okay? And again, everything we've talked about today, everything we've talked about, things that you control, you the salesperson control. You set the agenda for the meeting. Drive it, okay? You're getting out of that reactive mode that's been based on, okay, well, here's what the RFP says that we have to do to compete for this business. Here's the metrics and so forth. You're getting into wide open territory over here. Remember our chart with the 3 decision makers, okay? Draw a line across it, right? Above the line, above that line, people get paid to take risks. People have a floor of consideration. It's all about proactivity. It's all about it's all about brand values. It's all about creativity. It's about making things bigger. Below the line, reactive, making things smaller, mitigating risk. So you want to be in the thoughts here. I wanted to stay on this for another 90 seconds. The opportunity to brand that meeting, to define what that meeting was going to be about. Mm-hmm. Remember that part? Like, what's this meeting about? Okay. My guess is that there was not a real there was not a need that he had agreed to own. There was not kind of there wasn't you hadn't defined kind of the house that was on fire there. The meeting was not about anything more important than you as a potential vendor to deliver their message. That's okay. That's assumption number one. I think that was either not present or this guy was just very disingenuous and chose to backtrack on it and walk away from it. Okay. So I think that's pretty key, right? I think we want to make sure that we've got it. We get that engagement around what are the issues, narrative brief in that situation, get him to own them, get him to talk about them. Secondly, it's as soon as that comes up, right? And you'll hear versions of that all the time. Here's the most naked version of it. I've got a client, Vibrant Media, who does in-text advertising, and the rep gets an email from this. Literally, it was to him and to the guy at Conterra who he competed with. And the client sent the same email to both of them, copied them on it, and said, okay, I'm going to buy one of you guys. This is your chance to tell me why the other guy sucks.
Do that homework for me. Because he's going to respond to this email.
My response was, I said, you know what? I said the only worse than losing that business would be getting it. Okay. There's two kinds. My belief is that and I wrote this paper a few years ago called the Oreo Doctrine, which was about sort of the split in our business. And I think that there's going to be two kinds of people in the business, right? There's going to be the kind that create value, right, that grow opportunity, and there's going to be the kind that make stuff cheaper. Mm-hmm. And that whole side of the business that's organized around demand side platforms and and ad exchanges and real time bidding and all that stuff, that's all about making it cheaper. So your guy is going to be out of business. He's out of a job now. He'll ultimately sort of drop out of the business because that number of jobs is going to shrink. By the way, the RFP pipe that I talked about, the end of that chart, it's all going to be automated. Right? Publicis, right, one of the biggest media buyers in the world, has said that that by 2012, that's 2 years from now, that 70% of their media buying will be done from India.
Seriously?
Why not? Why wouldn't they? Right? Because it's essentially just humans interdicting supply demand. The assumption of parity is there. Right? Why do they need high-priced people sitting in offices in New York doing that stuff? That's essentially low. That's low-end handwork for them. And all the systems that are coming into place. So the opportunity for you guys is, personally and as a company, is to organize yourselves around creating value, around sort of harnessing that stuff and retrofitting it to big client business problems, being consultants, all that stuff. It's wide open. Nobody's really doing that great of a job with it. If you stick with the transactional end of the pipe, that's just going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's going to get more and more suffocating. And you're going to find so when Joe talked earlier today about the tipping point, right? Well, it's a tipping point not just for the business and sort of going from 21 to 50 to $100 million, but it's a tipping point for the industry because that side of the business is going to continue to get smaller and more automated. It's a tipping point for your careers. The same things that happen to be really, really good for Healthline in this whole scenario also happen to be really, really good for you. Right? Your career, what you're going to do for the next 20 years of your job here and make a lot of money, and have a lot of fun, it's out there, unless you stay with the transactional, RFP-driven side of things, which is just going to get smaller.